Very much for that. So that is MSTC in focus. Now the VA Tech Wabag stock has been surging. It was up around 5% yesterday, 24% in the last 1 month. In recent news flow, the company has got a 200 crore loan from the Asian Development Bank, that is ADB. And the stalled Russia project has also resumed execution. We're joined by Rajneesh Chopra, Global Head of Business Development at the company. Thank you very much, Rajneesh. Appreciate you joining in. Could you give us a sense of, what this loan is for? Is this at, what are the interest rates that you'll that you've got the loan at? What's the tenure? What will this be used for? And of course, a bit on the Russia project as well. What's the status?
Good morning, Prashant, and thanks for having me on your show. I think what you mentioned about the ADB, it's non-convertible debentures to the tune of 200 crores. So it's not going to, increase our debt. Definitely, we are optimizing our cost of interest. I may not be able to share the exact interest cost on this, but it's definitely going to help us, reduce our interest burden. And it's a long-term, this thing for 5 years and 3 months. So the tenor is longer. Now, the other part which you asked us is, what for it will be used. So it will be basically used for working capital or a growth capital, as we normally term it, so that we can move into the next phase of our growth. The other question on, our Russia order. Yes, you're absolutely right. In the first quarter, in April, it was, suspended, and we were waiting for the next announcement for coming from the client. And in July, the order was resumed. I think out of units of order worth around 1,300 odd crores, and probably, around 1,000 crore yet to be executed. The key highlight is this is an engineering and procurement order. So going forward in H2, we find that this will contribute substantially to our revenue and revenue growth with the H1.
Okay. All right. Hi, Mr. Chopra. Good morning. Give us a couple of numbers then. It will contribute substantially, this 1,000 crore order, and you believe that it doesn't run the risk of sanctions. So we have noted that. But how much could it contribute out of this 1,000 crores? How much gets reflected in the second half of this year? Point number one. And the second factor, you can't give us the exact interest rate about this, this money that you've got, that you'll be getting from ADB. But effectively, the interest cost will be lower, you're saying. How much lower than the current cost of borrowing?
I think it should be around 1% lower than what we are currently, having from commercial banks. So definitely being a multilateral. Secondly, ADB, it's a long-term tenure, and they are also committed to the sector. This is their first, private side investment in the Indian water sector. So it has a lot of significance, and going forward, probably if we need to expand and need more working capital, we are pretty hopeful that, institutions like ADB will further support us.
And what about the Russian order?
You asked about the Russian contribution. So normally this order is of around 24 months. So 300 crore, which is primarily more of engineering milestones which has been completed, and lesser part of supply. So we hope that in the next 6 months, at least, 40 to 50% of the balance should get executed. And that will definitely give us an upside as far as H2 is concerned.
Okay, so H2 revenues should be higher than H1 revenues by about 400 to 500 crore, purely on account of the Russian order. And over and above that, there will also be growth, right?
Yes, definitely. Okay. If you see historically, H2 has always been better than this. This order will contribute further. And also, I'm happy to share with you that, we are quite hopeful of getting substantial orders in H2. We are pretty well placed in quite a few orders, both in India as well as overseas.
Some number, which will indicate what the order pipeline is. We have your order book, 10,300 crore as of 30th of September. What's the current number as of 29th November? And any details about the potential order wins or the size?
This year we are not giving any guidance, so I may not give you the exact number. But as far as our calculations are concerned, probably we will be, 1,000 or 1,500 crore more than what we will execute during the second half. So our order book will further strengthen by the time we end this fiscal year in March 23.
Okay, all right. You know, the big trigger for the company really it will be the Chennai desalination project. What is the update, sir, on that front? You know, that's a large order that's waiting by. The stock market is very excited as well. But what's the latest on this? Is there a timeline?
See, there are three global bidders which are qualified. The technical clarifications are over. Now it all depends upon when the client is going to open the commercial bid. So it's all about being L1 now. We are keeping our fingers crossed and very hopeful that we should be a strong contender for this particular contract. But apart from this, there are a lot of other industrial desalination plants, which we are looking at both in India as well as Middle East. And there is a strategic shift, which you would have observed in last few quarters, that probably we are focused on EP orders. So when we are talking about EP, it's design, engineering, and procurement. So construction part, we are not taking in a lot of overseas contracts. So it may not give us that kind of a growth on the top line, but as far as bottom line is concerned, both on margins and cash flows, it will definitely benefit us. And true to our promise to our stakeholders, this will ensure a profitable growth, where our bottom line will grow more than the top line.
Okay, so just wanted to understand what's the outlook on margins in the second half of the year, and purely on account of this Russian order, are there going to be any cost overruns due to the delay in execution? And secondly, commodity prices are higher than what they were pre-COVID, but they are substantially lower than what it was in the first half of the year. So can you give us an outlook on margins for H2?
I'll take the later part of the question first. Commodity prices have definitely softened down and it will reflect going forward in our margins. But all I would like to share is most of our contracts had an escalation clause. But since the rise in commodity prices was very, very steep, it was by and large covering around 70 to 80% of our escalation of what was the actual escalation. And we are in dialogue with a lot of our clients to see that why that entire escalation is compensated. So, but going forward, definitely it will aid the margins. Now, as far as Russian order is concerned, I don't think there is any question of, extra cost there because the escalation is already part of the contract. And it's only the delay. And since it is not that, it's a construction contract where our site was fully mobilized. So we had optimized our cost of, engineering and procurement, since it was a lot of it is, offshore. So I don't think it will impact. Maybe we find it will only aid our margins because of the dollar appreciation.
So H2 margin should be better than H1, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Currently it's 7%. Could you inch it up to 9%, 8%?
And all I would say is that it will be better than H1.
Okay.
I'm unable to comment on the exact number.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Great speaking with you here on CNBC TV 18.